Hey guys, it's Steve with the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo here at the original video game art exhibit that I put together. I'll flip around and kind of walk you guys through a little bit of what I've put together this year and a few little tidbits around the art. So first up on the list, we have one of the original Cruisin' USA paintings from John Busey. This was used also on the side of the Nintendo 64 box for the original Cruisin' USA. I believe this is the only painted example that shows up on the box itself, but it was also used as the Driver 1 marquee. Really neat piece. John has tremendous technique, especially in his airbrush capabilities. One of the things I always notice about his work is that it tends to glow when you look at it, whenever you use these white highlights, and it takes a lot of guts. I know Dan has said that before on the group, but like just to splash white paint around that kind of glows, you know, after you've done all this work, you can very easily mess it up. Next up, we also have another painting from John Busey. This is for Cruisin' World. This is the Driver 2 marquee. It is also the side box art to that. And also, just like that, I was talking about the splatter in the paint. You know, John did that with the truck just to add a realistic effect to the... Next up, Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen, Gary Riddell. I've always really enjoyed Gary's work. He's a very talented painter. One of the things he told me in communications is that he really put a lot of love and care into his art. Most of his stuff is done on canvas, oil painting, which you don't see as much, of course, in video game art. But this is the original. I kind of wish they never cropped it so much. You barely notice the eyes or all the nice artifact that's on this piece. So for the original PS1, I kind of wonder, because they planned a Sega Saturn release, was this intended for a long box? That may be why the dynamic and cropping occurred there. Next up on the list, we have PlayStation Magazine cover. This is a Rocco. I know there's been a few of those popped up with the group, and a few collectors have put some on Heritage Auctions as well. This was done in pencil, but was finished digitally, published in Brazil. Next is a PC Engine shooter. We have Deep Blue. Not the best game in the world, but the art really pops on this. This is done by a Japanese artist named Kagami Yasuhiro. And I mean, I've tried to take pictures a bunch of times, but the colors just don't show up on film. Next up, I brought last year to this exhibit Slider for Game Gear, the published version. The original published version was done by Greg Winters. It had a very gritty feel to it. The original notes said that they were supposed to go for more gremlin-like, realistic shoes. They wanted the bad guys to look less cartoony, whereas Greg Martin originally did a painting for it. And I think they just felt this was more kid-oriented and not the image they wanted to go for to sell the piece itself. Coming up next is Surf Ninjas for the Sega Game Gear. This is part of the Welcome to the Next Level marketing campaign from Sega. There was a bunch of these. I know there was recently a X-Men version that was done comic style that popped up. They had a fairly large budget for this. And you can just see this is a beautiful piece. Roger's like water effects and the sunset on the ocean, incredibly realistic to see in person. I personally I've seen this movie a million times, and I remember the Sega Game Gear placement in it. So for me, this like hits home a lot, you know, to my childhood seeing this piece. But great to have it in the collection. All right, next on the list, this is one that I haven't publicly shown yet, but I recently acquired this from the original artist. This is Toe Jam and Earl Panic on Funkatron, the second Toe Jam and Earl for the Sega Genesis. This piece was done in a combination of airbrush and acrylics, as well as some watercolor, interestingly enough. It's done on a board. It was done by Kirk Henderson, who also did a number of concept art pieces for the Toe Jam and Earl, the second game. Yeah, really neat piece. The thing that always kind of struck out to me was the real fun details in his art style. You can really see it in the game as well. His concept pieces were given to the digitizers in order to turn them into the actual in-game assets. But it's like really like a neon orange on Earl when you see it in person. All right, coming up next, we have Wolverine. This is another Rocco piece. Very nicely done. I mean, his technique is very, very good. A little bit of airbrush. He always has kind of like a watercolor background. It reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff Rosetta did in the backgrounds when he would use like watercolor variants. But yeah, I mean, really nicely. The accents highlight him well. It's X-Men Arcade Fever was what it was advertising at the time for Super Game Power out of Brazil. All right. So this one is from Wing Commander, and I have a personal attachment to Wing Commander as well because the first time I ever found out about owning original video game art really came from Mike Winterbauer, the artist. He did a Kickstarter maybe like 6 years ago, and once I saw that, I realized, hey, this is something maybe you could actually obtain, and eventually I found the OVGA, or the Original Video Game Art Facebook group, but really nice color composition. Final stage, of course, before they made the painting for the box art, but I mean, it's basically the same image. All right, next up on the list, Johnny Mnemonic for the pinball machine, the back glass art. Really nice piece. This is from John Yusi, and John had said that he originally received the asset photos from Sony, and he took all that and he kind of built a background painting around it. He painted over everything on a giant board. And then he did the foreground characters, but they actually are in, if you look at the piece up close, you can see different shine between the characters and the background. So he said he had difficulty with the ink actually sticking to the painting. But the person he worked with at Sony, because this was a movie published, they actually demanded a lot out of John. He said like he was always really proud of this work. You can certainly recognize a lot of people. Ice-T. We got Keanu Reeves, creepy looking dude in the back. And they liked the picture or the painting so much, Sony did, that they invited John out to the premiere of the movie. So you got to go see the original premiere out in Hollywood. Next up, another Rocco. This is also a magazine piece, again from Brazil. These are all the Roccos are. But really clean work. I've always kind of enjoyed his technique, even if some of them are kind of pre-posed positions. Also hiding in there is Resident Evil 2 advertisement with the little dog running through there. So, and Gran Turismo. There's not a lot of Gran Turismo stuff out there too. Was a big fan of the series. Next up on the Rocco, this is probably my favorite Rocco piece of the group. Just because, you know, again, you don't see a whole lot of Nintendo published stuff. But I always liked that era of style of Link to the Past, Link's Awakening. Link's Awakening is definitely one of my favorite games out there. I think he did a really nice job, even with Baby Mario, Yoshi. And then they kind of snuck in there Lunar 2, Eternal Blue. So you got a nice mash. I mean, they're bursting through the back glass. Did a nice little color transition. You got like pink to blue to black. So all around, I mean, it's a great looking piece visually. All right, starting over from another section. So here is the original painting for Sword of Hope 2 by Ezra Tucker. I always like this image. He actually does like really nice work from the clouds. They really like kind of look like clouds, like from flying in airplanes and all that. And the sword's kind of going right at you. I mean, you can't beat a sword. One of the interesting comments out here, a young kid mentioned to one of the staff members, isn't that the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album? And I never thought about it before, but with the Rainbow Prism, I mean, honestly, it shares a lot of resemblance minus the sword part. So neat comment from one of the people that walked by. All right, next piece up, this is City of Lost Children. This was done by Dan Crisp. I actually think this holds up as an art piece on its own. It's actually very nicely done. The artist commissioned and made 3 different pieces. For a long while, this one was not identified because it's so close to the original cover on the manual, which would have been the box art. I mean, literally, the guy looks exactly the same. But I own the game, being obscure, and when I went and dug in there, I saw that the art was in the inlay tray. So they cut off the little girl and the kind of sunset there across the river, unfortunately, but a very nice piece visually for an obscure game. Next up, the Scroll. So this is by Lawrence Fletcher. Lawrence Fletcher did a few different video game arts. This is probably my favorite, not just because I own it, but I found this really cool frame to go with it. Kind of reminds me of the whole Egyptian theme. It's a point-and-click adventure, and you got King Tut in the front. You got like these little ghostly spirits and wisp around there. So really nicely done piece. and Air Power. So Air Power was produced by Mindscape. It was a combat flight simulator. This one was done by Chris French. A lot of this was done in airbrush. You got like the Zeppelin up there. I assume that probably thinking Hindenburg or something along those lines. You got a few of them in the background. You got the fighter jets that are firing off. You got this guy going down in a blaze of glory. So definitely very, very reminiscent of World War I, World War II type pieces, and you knew what you were getting into. All right, over here we have Marsupilami. This is a finished Sega Genesis cover, and it's done true to scale. It's actually a very tiny piece. Usually the pieces are a lot bigger. Done in inks and watercolor. This was done by Luke Collin, who goes by the pen name of Batum, and he was took over from the original artist with Marsupilami. Marsupilami being a lot more popular overseas, particularly in the Europe community. And speaking of Europe, this is also a European art. This was done for the release of Sonic 2. They had a calendar. I also own the cover piece of that. It says 1993 with Sonic. You notice the style's a little bit different. Most of this is done in airbrush very tightly. They got a little bit more of a round head than we had in North America. And Japan had their own kind of style of Sonic as well. Nice translucent Robotnik out there in the stars. So overall, like, very striking image. The neat thing about this piece, beyond the calendar being an interior page, it was also used in a number of promotional uses. They also cut them out and dropped them on the Mega Drive box. So they're there, and they added a new two on it. Yeah, certainly a nice piece for the Sega Sonic fans. Over here we have another one of John Yossi's paintings. John did quite a bit of work for this one, I believe, Stern, but this one was done all in pencil in that transition period where he started to do digital work. So this actually is the final, but you can just see the level of detail and things that John worked into the piece. Very large to scale, given it's a pinball back glass piece. When they colored it digitally, though, they did make some changes. Like, you'll notice in the back by this guy, the dog, or the creepy looking dog, is not there. So interesting to see that style. It was done on like a tracing paper, but the one thing that surprised me is it was like a really heavy duty plastic of sorts. So I guess that must be something that the professional illustrators use. It's the first time I've ever seen that type of material. Also from that type of heyday, here's the Revenant for PC. This was done by Dan Beauvais, and this was also in that transition out of digital art. So when you look at the box art, it's one of those pyramid-shaped boxes. I remember that from when I had Soul Reaver when I was younger. But all those backgrounds are all digital assets. They added a little bit of highlight around the character and scanned this and dropped it on there. So that was right around that transition as well. All right, here's another Roco piece. This is done for Mortar Combat Special Forces. There's a lot of airbrush done in here. The neat thing about this piece, you can't really tell in pictures, but there's a lot of like splatter effect actually textured in the Mortal Kombat logo, which is kind of neat. He also did a really nice job like accenting all this. It really glows the lightning look to it. The original cover was all digital on the game, so this is kind of, I guess, his interpretation of that. I haven't found a reference image for this one. So yeah, neat piece overall, published in Brazil, PlayStation Magazine. Next on the list, Kickle Cubicle. This is the advertising art for it by Stephen Perringer. This is one that I had picked up at Heritage Auctions when a bunch of the Stephen Perringer art came up. Really neat looking piece. I know he put a lot of time into cutting Frisket and doing all these individual shapes. To me, actually, I think that looks a little bit better to me than the actual box art, but you know, some people will like that style better. That's all personal taste. Stephen Perringer, certainly a lot of people know him from doing Final Fantasy Mystic Quest and a number of other titles as well. I had a chance to talk to him a bit a couple years ago before he passed away this past year. Nice guy. Yeah, that's Kickle Cubicle. And the last of the Roco pieces that I have on display here, this is for Street Fighter II Turbo. This was on Game Power in Brazil. You can see really nice image. There's a reference image of this out there. I believe it may be a Japanese image, but really pops on paper. Roughly true to scale to the magazine size. So not a huge piece, but very nicely done. A lot of detail in there for how small the piece is. All right, Game Boy Color. Always like the Game Boy stuff. Tiny Toons, I watched that a lot as a kid, so really like these pieces. The challenging part about framing these is they come on like a very large comic book paper from Warner Brothers. Particularly this one, I think, says it on there. And they were done through, I think, like a comic group. And so they took this, and then they would have done backgrounds, colors, either digitally or added through other means. But this is the final inks for it. Very nicely. We've hidden all that awkward paper away with the actual box image behind it. So it comes off a nice, clean presentation. And in addition to that, we also have Dizzy's Candy Quest. This was also the final ink lines. Would have been colored or done digitally for the finish, or added a background through other means. Kind of done comic book style here. So, look great, framed. Next up, we have 2 fishing pieces from Mark Heine. And Mark was actually, I got a chance to talk with him a bit via email before I had purchased this piece from him. And he unfortunately recently passed away. It was sad to hear that. He's a very talented artist. He sent me actually a lot of interesting details and a picture. He used to be a fishing guide. He put himself through college doing fishing tours. So when this job opened up, he had actually produced a sample image of a bass, which he sent me a scan of. He doesn't have it because they never sent it back. But he said, hey, told him their story, was my understanding, and that, I'd like to do this image. And, I used to be a professional fishing guide. I understand fishing. And you can just see, like, the detail work here. I mean, the water with the bubbles. I mean, it's a really impressive image. It looks great for a bass. Interestingly, a young kid came by at the show here and recognized trophy bass, and I was shocked that was one of the ones that a younger kid would know about. But certainly not a bad game for fishing. A fantastic painting, and it won an award for illustration award as well, which Mark sent over to me, so I have a copy of that. Also from Mark, we have Rapala Tournament Fishing, and this just screams like fishing when I was a kid. I had this exact lure. I know I went fishing with it, never caught a thing with it, but I remember the colors. And in a piece like this, looks actually kind of interesting. It's a bit smaller. It's about, I'd say, like 8.5 by 11 type size, maybe off a little bit there, but like super detailed. Again, his waterwork and the bubbles and stuff is tremendous. I mean, even his lure looks pretty darn realistic. But sure enough, this was in that digital era. It was done for Rapala Tournament Fishing for Wii and Xbox 360. But what happened? They cut all the background out, they left some of the water, and they changed the lure, amazingly enough, which surprised me. I think it wasn't the lure that they wanted, so that's why they did it. But I would much prefer the original image. So, yeah, there's the second of Mark Heine fishing paintings. All right, and last but not least, so these 3 were submitted by Brendan. These were his first pinball purchases. Certainly very nice looking pieces. This one is for Embryon, which has an interesting backstory. My understanding is that the piece was not completed in time, and so they needed to get this to publishing. So what they actually did is they took the left side of this image and they duplicated it over here on the right, but they also went ahead and took the right side face up here and put it on the left side. So the finished painting itself kind of is a combination of the two, but it's a fairly complete image. They also took some of these tracks and things around here and they just let them fill in with like a mirror finish on the art. So the back glass actually in person pops quite a lot. Really nice piece visually, and it's got a lot of neat history with it. It's you can see the pencil line still in there from the work in progress on the right side here. In addition to that, there's also 8 Balt Champ. This is the color comp by Tony Ramuni, who also did the Embryon piece. You can see in here there's some differences from the final painting, which I'll show you in just a minute. There's a woman back there at the bar. You got the two guys up front. A couple people over here. There's a woman in the center there that's no longer there in the finished. So a little bit of differences, but I mean, I think most of this looks like it's done in marker, but it's really nicely done. It's a bit smaller than a back glass, but there's a ton of detail in here. Very nice for color composition. In Pinball, they certainly had a little more budgets and time to do these kind of things. And then I'll bring you over here to the final back glass image for 8-Ball Champ. So this is another one of Brendan's that he brought along. As you can see, the woman over here on the right, gone. The one over here in the center, gone. And the bartender looks a little bit different with his posing. I believe a lot of that was done for where the score stuff is going to be located. And a couple of fun facts about this as well. The two guys in the front of the image are actually Bally game designers. So that's Jim Patla in the center and George Christian on the left. And the date that they finished the game is in the pinballs. So 7/80/85, I think it was. So July 1985. So nicely done piece. Certainly interesting to see the two different phases and the changes that happen there. So that is the exhibit here for Long Island Retro Gaming Expo. I'll take you on a quick go around tour of it. I've had a lot of visitors, probably more than a few thousand people walk through here, it seemed like. So yeah, it's great to be able to show some of this original video game art off to the to people out here, and teach people all about it. I think a lot of people are surprised that this is a thing.